Recently I was at the gym and I saw a guy over by the water fountain, the drinking fountain, and he looked familiar to me. And I was walking by and kind of looked over at him, and he was taking a drink of water. And when he stopped, I kind of approached him slowly. I said, "Hey, excuse me." And he looks at me and I said, "Are you the guy that I went off on a while back?" And he says, "Yeah, that's me." And I said, "Hey, I just want to let you know I'm really sorry about that. I apologize." I said, "That's not me, and that's not who I want to be." And he's like, "Oh man," kind of took him off guard, right? And my eyes even welled up, and his eyes welled up, and I introduced myself to him. I'm like, "Hey man, my name's Mike," and he introduces himself, and I said, I said, "Dude, I was having a really bad day." You see, what had happened is I was working out on some exercise equipment, and I had just got a text message from my sister, and my younger sister, and she was telling me that my dad was in the hospital. And I just heard it for the first time. I didn't know my dad was in the hospital. What happened to Dad? And so I texted my sister back. I'm like, "What's going on?" And as soon as I texted her back, this guy was standing there looking at me, staring at me with his arms crossed. And I said, "Can I help you with something?" He says, "Yeah, I'm just waiting to get my set in." Now, there's plenty of different machines in that gym, and I was doing a calf exercise, working my calves out. And I had just started this machine, and he's waiting to get his set in. And the way he had approached me and the way he said it, it just wasn't what I call gym etiquette. So I'm thinking, has this guy never worked out before? You just approach somebody with your arms crossed and you talk like that to him? He could have asked, "Hey, do you mind if I get a set in?" But just waiting to get my set in. So, I look up at him and I said, "Well, you know what? I just started this, and there's a whole bunch of other exercises you can do." I said, "But, looking at you, I can tell that you've never been to the gym before." I said, "So why don't you go be creative and do a different exercise?" And I said, "You can stop staring at me like a little looky-loo." And the guy just stood there, staring still. And I said, "Did you hear me?" I said, "You can go away now, little looky-loo." And the guy says, "You know what? I've been working out before you were born." And I said, "Really? Because I'm about to turn 50. How old are you?" And he's like, "Oh, well, you didn't look that old." And I said, "Yeah, but you do." And he walks away. And I'm admitting to you guys, I talked like that to somebody, and as soon as he walked away, I felt terrible. And I can make excuses and say, "Well, I was just having a bad day. I just got bad news about my dad." But the truth is, I don't want to make excuses. The truth is, I felt terrible. And so, recently, I see that guy drinking water at the water fountain. I'm like, "Is that guy?" So I approached him, and I let him know how sorry I was. And I told him, that's not me, and that's not who I want to be. And I said, I had a bad day. I got some bad news about my dad from my sister. And I said, I had just texted her back, and there you were standing above me. And I said, "Bro, I'm just I'm just really sorry. And we shook hands. I introduced myself to him. He introduced himself to me. And it was amazing, you guys. I was like, this is so awesome. It's so good to make peace. You know, peace is a choice. And some people, they might hold it against you and they might not want to make peace with you. And then there's others, like the guy at the gym that, well, he made peace with me. Or I made peace with him, or we made peace together. So that was a really awesome experience. Another thing that happened recently at the gym, so you guys can all know that I have a little rage-o-maniac in me sometimes, and I'm working on it. So just recently, again, last week in fact, I think I shared with you guys the stuff that was going on at my work. You know, and I was going through some bad stuff over there. You know, it was almost equivalent to being a Jehovah's Witness. It was almost the equivalent to experience of being a Jehovah's Witness, going into a toxic environment every day. And for some reason, instead of wanting to walk around angry and bitter, you know, my boss, the guy that owned the hair salon, he let me go, right? He's kind of always had something against me anyway. He calls me a right-wing, anti-vaxxer, Trump-supporting, Fox News-watching Christian. How stupid that you believe in a guy that doesn't even exist. Jesus, it's so stupid. I mean, he lets it known. You know, I don't dare talk about the stuff that he believes in, but he sure can dare out loud talk about stuff that he thinks I believe in, right? I don't ever remember talking to him about any political views I have. I don't remember ever telling him that I watch certain news stations, because quite frankly, you guys, I don't sit and watch the news. I don't enjoy the news. I like good news. I don't like bad news. I am realistic. I understand that there's bad news out there. I pay attention to what's going on. But I don't need to watch news stations all day, every day, or even a little bit every day, and just hear about the negative gossip and all the stuff that, you know, they talk about, it seems like. So, and anti-vaxxer. Personally, I'm against these shots and the bonus boosters that they come with, right? For myself, I know plenty of people that have gotten those shots, and I'm not against them, and that's for them. You know, years ago, I had this voice, if you will, call it a voice, this little something inside me that told me it was time for me to exit the Jehovah's Witnesses religion. And I listened to that voice. And for me, it was the right thing to do. Now, if that voice doesn't tell other people that are Jehovah's Witnesses to get out of that religion, well, I suppose that's for them. But that voice, it's my guide, and it's personal for me. And so when I listened to that voice, I made the greatest decision I ever made in my life. Getting out of that toxic environment, right? And I had invited someone else into my life. The one that had guided me with that voice in the first place. And it is that spirit in me that I try to tune into, because that spirit will never, ever, ever guide me in a wrong way. Right? What's the scripture say in Psalm 23? Not only does he make you lie down in green pastures, but he takes you to a place of Manuka waters. Manuka is restful. It's a place of peace, right? That's what that Hebrew word. You might think it says still waters, but it's Manuka, which means restful waters. And when you're at rest, you're at peace. And there's just something amazing about peace, right? So, before I continue about the gym story, I just want to reach out and say, hey, thank you to many of you that reached out to me when I made that video talking about how I got let go from my job, right? Because I was the only one in that hair salon that I work in that was still made to wear a mask. My boss was enforcing that I had to wear a mask because I was the only one in there that didn't get the shots. And because I didn't, he wanted to make a statement. And he used me to make it. Although here in Southern California, the mask mandates have lifted everywhere. Pretty much. I mean, I'm not saying hospitals and stuff, doctors and nurses still wear that, but even the airlines aren't requiring people to wear masks anymore. Shots or not. But the guy I was working for, well, he's above the law. He's above the mandates. His medical science is superior to everybody's. So he, of course, wanted to exercise his power that he thinks he has over me. And I had had enough. So I told him I'm not wearing the mask anymore. So he told me that I was suspended until further notice. And that's his way of saying you're fired, because when you suspend somebody with, until further notice, what you're saying is, well, I'll let you know when you can come back. Kind of like being grounded as a kid, as a child. But I have a lot of people that have been calling me and texting me that have known me for years and years and years. People I've been doing their hair way before I started working at that guy's place. And they're telling me that they received phone calls from the hair salon. Many of them were calling me immediately, texting me and saying, hey, they say that you don't work there anymore. So would you like another stylist to do your hair? And if they're saying I don't work there anymore, well, that means either I got fired or I quit. And the reason he told me that I'm suspended until further notice is because that way he can fight me if I try to get unemployment. But I didn't research into unemployment or try to get unemployment. I'm just resting in the Lord, and I have peace that surpasses any kind of comprehension, any kind of understanding. That's what Paul wrote to the Philippians in the Bible. This peace surpasses any kind of understanding, beyond anything we can comprehend, and it guards your heart and mind. It's amazing. It comes from Christ. So I have this amazing peace, and I enjoy having peace. And so leaving that salon was almost equivalent to leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses religion. I never looked back and wondered if I made a mistake when I left that religion. There's a story in the Bible about a woman who, she remains nameless, but they call her the wife of Lot, a man named Lot. And it was his wife. And when she looked back to the things behind, she literally got frozen in time. Like a pillar of salt, just standing there, looking to the past, never looking forward, moving ahead again. I'm like, that's not me. I'm moving forward. I'm moving ahead. I'm not looking back with regrets. And so here I am. I just want to thank you guys for so many of you contacted me. You gave me positive thoughts, and some of you even had given me financial gifts, which, like, that was really nice. That's really nice of you guys. I don't, I received so many emails. I don't remember if I received so many emails in one day, but you guys did. And I'm just so grateful for you and humbled, and just want to make sure that I'm thankful. So back to the gym story. So I'm enjoying this peace, and I'm enjoying the fact that I made peace with that one guy at the gym, and here I am at the gym again. And this was just last week. This was recent. I don't even know if it was it last week, or I think it was after I had gotten removed from the salon, which was Saturday, and today's Friday. So, I mean, you might be watching this on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or whatever, but it's Friday, the May 6th today. And the reason I remember that is because yesterday people were celebrating something called Cinco de Mayo, which means 5th of May. So it's been almost a week. Tomorrow will be a week since I left my job. And I couldn't be happier. And I have so much peace in me. So I suppose it was maybe Sunday, the day after I left. I went to the gym, I worked out. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling at peace. And this guy is behind me doing some shoulder exercise. And when I turn around and I see him, he looks familiar to me. So I walk up to him. He says, "Excuse me." "Yeah?" I said, "Are you that neighbor that I had an altercation with a while back?" He says, "That would be me." I said, "Hey man, I just want to let you know I'm really sorry about that." I said, that's not who I am, and that's not who I want to be. And he's like, "Oh, it's okay." And I said, "Well, no, it wasn't okay, man." I said, I'm really sorry. I apologize." And we shook hands. His eyes kind of welled up, and so did mine. And we had a really nice conversation. I'm like, it's great that we can have peace together. And he's like, yeah, tell me about it. He's like, especially since we're neighbors. And I'm like, yeah. I said, it's really nice to officially meet you, because what had happened is I went outside to dump the trash, and suddenly I hear this guy just kind of walk by and say some kind of smart remark to me. I said, "Excuse me?" And he says, "You heard me." And he keeps on walking. And I'm like, what's this dude's deal? So I said, "What'd you say?" And he keeps on walking. And I said, "Why don't you come back here like a man and say it to my face?" And he keeps walking. So I said to him, "I don't blame you." I said, "I'd be scared to talk to me too." So, I see him at the gym, and it doesn't matter if it was his fault for smarting off saying whatever he did. I don't even remember. But the thing is, it felt really good to make peace. And whether he was in the right and I was in the wrong, or vice versa, it doesn't matter. And so we made peace together, and it felt really good. And we had a nice conversation afterward. Because sometimes there's people in your life that they honestly don't want peace. In fact, I was reading in the year 2020, I was reading in the book of Psalms. It's a book in the Old Testament that's full of poetry and songs. It's musical. It's beautiful, if you really understand what the psalmists are saying. Different writers, And anyway, this particular psalm is in chapter 120, and it was 2020 that I was reading this, and I think it was verse 7 that said, I am for peace, but they are for war. And when I saw that, I'm like, man, that's so true. Sometimes you want to make peace with people, and even if it was your fault, let's say, and they're holding a grudge, and they hold on to that grudge for years and years and years and years and won't let it go, and you wish they would let it go, and you've done everything in your power to show them how sorry you are, and oh man, they just have it against you, and they can't stand you. And there's people that are actually people that believe in grace, and they talk about grace and God's grace for them. But then when it comes to you, well, they don't believe in God's grace for you. See, you're different. You don't deserve His grace, they think. Well, sorry to say, but people that think like that have no idea what grace is all about, because it's not deserving, if you know what I'm saying. Grace is a gift. And if they think they deserve grace, then they do not understand grace. They think they deserve it from God. He gives it to them. But since you're the jerk and you're the one that messed up and you're the one that got them mad and you did something that hurt them in whatever kind of way, well, you don't deserve His grace. Well, that's right. I don't deserve His grace. I don't think any of us do. That's why it's called a gift, right? So yeah, there's times that, you'll want peace with somebody and it just might not ever happen. So what's the answer? The answer is, well, you need peace with yourself, right? I mean, you might be thinking, well, no, I need peace with God. Well, listen, years and years, a long time ago, approximately 2,000 years ago, there was this voice that shouted out with a loud cry, "It is finished," or in Hebrew, "Kala," which means God has peace with you now. You just might not be aware of it, but He made His peace with you a long time ago. Now you just need to make your peace with yourself. And if you try to make peace with others, but you don't have peace with yourself, well, guess what? You're not going to have peace with others. You can't give peace to somebody if you don't have it yourself, but you do have peace. You just might not be aware of it. That peace is contained in your spirit. Now, you just need to get that peace to be released and let it flow. And it's got to flow all throughout you, through your soul, into your mind, and then you can give it out to others. But it comes from your spirit, and that's your source for peace. And you're full of this word called shalom. You just might not be aware of it. So when you come to a place of peace for yourself, then you know what? If others don't want it, well, so be it, right? Some people are just peace vampires. They want to suck the peace away from you. But that doesn't fill them with peace. They just want to take away your peace. Why? I don't know. People are messed up. We got problems, right? I've probably been a peace vampire too. Who knows? Probably have, right? Confessed. Let me tell you something that happened recently. Last week, when I was still at my job, I recently published my little children's books. My one, Frog on a Lily Pad, and then I published the coloring book, Frog on a Lily Pad coloring book, right? And so I was at work and I remembered that someone gave me inspiration to write that book, Frog on a Lily Pad. See, what happened was, years ago, I was dating this girl. And when we were dating, she was like one of these people that just was so giving. She always was thinking of me. She would get me sometimes just the littlest things, and it meant so much to me. I mean, she could have given me a petrified piece of poop and said, "Here, I was thinking of you. It's petrified poop." And I probably would have just loved it. I mean, because I would have thought, well, it means something to her, so now it means something to me. So years ago, she broke up with me 12 years ago. Broke my heart. She was done. Rightfully so. I sabotaged that relationship. Right? I really did. I was jealous. I was insecure. I didn't trust her. I don't know why. I just, probably a whole bunch of reasons, that I could psychologically explain the big mess I was, but we don't need to go there right now. But I wrote about it. I published that book called My Jehovah back in 2015, and some of you even still reach out to me and, hey, I want a copy of your book. I just don't have any more copies, and that's a whole nother story. I'm trying to, I'd like to get it re-edited and I'd have to contact the publisher and just, have it redone again. So eventually I'd like to, I just don't have the money for it right now because I spent my money on the children's books. So, and right now I'm jobless, but I am not freaking out or anything. I went to a buddy's house today, him and his wife and his mother, who's like 95 years old, and I cut all their hair. And my YouTube channel I wasn't able to upload YouTube videos for a while, and couldn't figure out what was going on. It just stopped. I wasn't able to upload with my phone anymore. Something happened, and I couldn't figure it out. And I tried, and I went online, and I looked up all the information, and I'm not a techie guy, right? So I'm at my buddy's house, and I told him about it, and he says, "Let me take a look at your phone. Let me see what I can do." So while I'm cutting his wife's hair, he gets my phone, and I had a video I had already recorded a couple days ago, but I wasn't able to upload it because I couldn't figure out how. And so he figures out a different way that I can upload videos, and it's not the way that I'm used to, but it worked. So I wrote down the directions of what he did and how he did it, and I uploaded a video today called earlier today called while I was working. I mean, I'm driving from house to house, and and I have the video uploading, and it was called "When Christians Turn Their Back on You." So that was kind of stressful, but I didn't let it rob me of my peace. But let me tell you, it was trying to. There's been a whole bunch of things that's been trying to rob me of peace this week, but I was already prepared for it, right? I knew resistance would come, but resistance, it don't scare me no more, because when I go to the gym, I do not grow unless there is resistance. And I've learned that through the trials that we go through in life, for myself anyway, well, those things, when I make them through, I find myself coming out stronger in the long run. So, try to embrace resistance. Maybe I'll make a video about it sometime soon. Well, anyway, so he fixes the thing. I'm able to upload videos now. I'll upload this one when I can. But back to the story of this girl. Years ago, I had met her at my gym, a gym I was working out at. And she had come up to me. Just suddenly, this girl standing in front of me, and she says, "Are you a fighter?" And I said, "Not professionally, but I love a good brawl if that's what you're asking." And she laughed, and I laughed, and we talked for about 30 seconds, but it was the craziest thing. And I never had this happen to me before. She's the girl that made time stand still. Time stood still. It's hard to explain, but I was looking at her, and it was like she was glowing, and it was like we were both standing in clouds together. and everything around me. Nothing existed. There were no people, nothing. It was just her and I. Really incredible experience. So we talked a little bit, and then, she goes off. All right, see you later. And she was gone. And I'm like, what just happened to me? And I couldn't explain it. And I even went, I was on I was just working out, and I was on a break. I was going back to work. I was on like a lunch break. I used my lunch break to go to the gym, and I went back to work. And my coworkers are like, what happened to you? I don't know. I'm like, I think my life's about to change. What? I'm like, I can't explain it. It's like when I met this girl, it was almost like, the only way I can describe it is how it felt to me at the time. And we're talking, years ago, you guys. I mean, she and I dated for probably, around 2 years, and she broke up with me 12 years ago. So, maybe this happened about 14 years ago. I was in a whole different mindset back then. I didn't know how to explain what I had gone through. All I could say is it felt like I had lived 1,000 lifetimes. And each lifetime, she was a part of it. And here we were once again, meeting in this lifetime. The only way I could describe it is if you ever watched a movie called Hancock. It was Will Smith and Charlize Theron were in it. And they played these two beings that they just lived and lived for centuries and centuries and centuries, and something just kept drawing them back together again. And that's kind of how it felt with this person. And she's the girl she's the one I call the one that got away, right? That's how I felt when she had broken up with me, and I wanted to get back together so bad, and tried what I thought was everything I can, and I was so sorry for the way I had treated her and the way I handled things, but she was done with me, and I didn't hear from her again, right? When it was finally done, I got a letter in the mail from her, because after she broke up, a month later, we kind of started texting back and forth again, and I was so excited, and then suddenly I get this letter from her in the mail, and I was really excited to get this letter, and it was the most painful thing I had ever read in my life. Basically, she was telling me what a rotten person I was and how I was the worst thing that ever happened to her, and all these things that just crushed me, and I knew it was time that I had to let her go. But that wasn't instant. It took me a long time to heal, but I healed. And I never thought we'd speak again. But I remember when we were dating, like I said, she'd give me these neat little gifts all the time. She was always so thoughtful. There's some people, you might date people, or you might even be married to one, unfortunately, that just takes, and never gives. It's like they never think of you. They don't think to give. Not that they need to buy you stuff. Nobody needs to buy me stuff. I can't stand when somebody thinks they got to buy my friendship or buy time with me. No way, right? That makes it not a gift. Like years ago, I had a relative that gave me $500 as a gift, 2009. And this person has never let me forget about it or my other relatives forget about it. And I'm like, how many times do I have to thank this person for that $500 they gave me years and years ago because I was in need? And it was a gift. They never let it down. So you know what I did? Not too long ago, because I keep on hearing about it from other people in my family. I just keep on hearing about this all the time, that this person just keeps on bringing it up. But I'm like, okay, I'm going to solve this thing. So I got a card, a thank you card, and I put it in an envelope, and I put $500 cash in that card. And I sent it back, and I said, thank you. The gift you gave me has never been, or has never gone forgotten. And that was it. And I made my peace with that finally. You know, some people, they call it a gift, but there's always some kind of strings attached behind it, right? You know what I'm saying. But with this girl that I was dating, there were no strings attached. Her gifts always came from the heart. And one day, she hands me this little porcelain figurine of a frog on a lily pad. And I don't know the meaning to it. I don't know the meaning behind it. I just know it came from her. And since it came from her, it was a great gift to me. And it was important to me. And so I looked at this little frog figurine, and this is what I said. I said, I'm just a frog on a lily pad, going with the flow. Where the current takes me, I don't even know. If I knew my destination, I probably wouldn't go. But I'm just a frog on a lily pad. I'm just a frog on a lily pad. I'm just a frog on a lily pad, going with the flow. And she's like, that's so cute. Where did you hear that? And I said, I just now made it up. And she's like, nuh-uh. And I'm like, yeah, I did. She's like, oh my God, you should write that down. And I'm like, I should write that down. So I grab a notepad and some pen and a pen, and I'm like, how'd it go again? I was trying to remember because I just made it up random, and it all rhymed, and it was cute. And so she liked it, so I wrote it down. And I thought, maybe I'll make that into a song someday. And the craziest thing is, I had written plenty of songs in my life, sang them, recorded them, given them out to people as gifts. And this was the first time I had ever written lyrics to a song where I couldn't figure out the rest of the song. It's like Frog on a Lily Pad, that was the chorus, but what was the rest? I couldn't figure it out. And then she dumps me in 2010? I said it was 12 years ago, so it was around 2010. And eventually, in 2013, I got inspired, which makes me really understand the meaning behind inspiration. For instance, when people were writing what's called scripture, I get it. Inspiration. When I took a pen and a notepad, I was sitting at my place of work, and I had looked out the window, and I saw this set of trees. I saw these trees, and for some reason, the leaves and all that, to me, it just looked like a picture of a frog, and I sketched it. And I made this little cartoon frog out of what I was kind of seeing in the trees. And then I remembered that little song I wrote, that little jingle, if you will, Frog on a Lily Pad. And so I grabbed this notepad and a pen, and I just started writing. And I wasn't thinking about what I'm going to write about, what's this frog going to do, what's the next thing. I wasn't thinking those things. All I knew is I'm going to write. And when I wrote, it flowed. And before you know it, I write the words, the end. And I had a little book, a little story. And I told people that story all the time. There would be people that bring their children in to get haircuts from me. And I'm like, hey, you want to hear a story? And I tell them the story. And the families loved it. And the children loved it. And everybody's like, oh my God, where did you get that story? I'm like, I made it up. Oh, you should make a book. You should publish a book. And I'm thinking, I should publish a book. Well, all these years go by and I finally publish Frog on a Lily Pad children's book and Frog on a Lily Pad coloring book. So I was at work last week and I was thinking about how this girl had inspired me to write these stories, or this story, the Frog on a Lily Pad story. Because the coloring book is the same story, right? So I'm like, I wonder if I should reach out and thank her for the inspiration. Because if it wasn't for her giving me that little frog figurine, I probably would have never written that story. So I don't know her phone number. I don't know about her life. I don't know where she's at, nothing. And I don't know how to contact her, but I'm like, I wonder if she's like on Facebook, right? And I'm the worst Facebook friend there is because, I have a Facebook, but I rarely go on and look at the latest stuff. I get so much stuff going on in my life all the time, busy. And I have a lot of emails I try to answer. I get lots of messages from people and I get multiple emails, sometimes from just one person, and I'm like, man, it's sometimes like I can't ever catch up, right? So, and sometimes I get people through Facebook Messenger, and I get a bunch of messages through Facebook Messenger as well. And sometimes I just can't keep up. Sometimes it's overwhelming, like I'm trying to keep up. Well, anyway, I figure, well, if people find me through Facebook Messenger, maybe I can type her name in Facebook Messenger and see what happens. And so I start to type her name and it shows up. I started the first 3 letters and suddenly there she is. Like Messenger was reading my mind. I don't have her phone number. I don't know her number. I hadn't spoken to her in years. As far as I know, she hates my guts. And as far as I know, she doesn't even remember who I am. And, rightfully so. I would forget about me too if I were her. So what happens is, I'm like, okay. So I took pictures of the 2 little books and I sent a little message with it saying, hey, I won't use her name. Hey, so-and-so. I'll just say so-and-so. And I said, do you remember that little song I sang to you years ago? I said, check it out. And I sent the pictures of her book. And I said, you are my inspiration, and I wanted to thank you. Well, there's this thing on Facebook Messenger that if somebody reads your message, it lets you know that they read the message. There's a way that you can tell that they read the message. And she had read the message pretty quickly after I had sent it. And so, no response came. And the following day, there was no response. And you can imagine I felt pretty stupid after that. I'm like, oh man, she probably still hates me, or maybe she's like, who is this person? What? Name sounds familiar. I don't know who they are. I'm just like, I'm feeling like, oh man, I probably shouldn't have sent that message. And I'm like, man, maybe she thinks that I'm trying to rekindle the romance or something. And listen, that is the last thing I was trying to do. My intentions were 100% pure, you guys. So I'm like, oh boy, she took the message wrong. And I was kind of embarrassed. So I deleted the message so I didn't have to look at it. A reminder of what a jerk I was back then, where this person's like, I am not responding to you. And I let it go. Because this year is the year that I'm letting stuff go so I can flow. And I do want to flow in peace for sure. And I'm telling you, there is nothing like peace. Some people want war, but you know what? If you're for peace, that's a great place to be, you guys. But you have to have this peace within. Remember that. So the day I sent the message, no response. The next day, no response. And then suddenly, the following day, there's a response. Now listen, I get people sending me messages too. And since I get so many messages sent to me, it might take me days to respond. And some people might get hurt or think I'm ignoring them or whatever it is. And there's even some people, I unfortunately have to block them from messaging me. Because sometimes they take things just a little bit too far. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I've had people that watch my channel and they tell me, their intentions, oh, I love your stuff and all that. But then suddenly they're switching up to a whole different thing where their intentions aren't about, hey, I'm getting edified by these things you're doing. Their intentions are, God told me that we're supposed to get married, and it turns into nasty sometimes. Sometimes you don't feel the same way about them, then, well, you must not be hearing from God. You don't hear from him after all. And they get mad. I've had, it's been crazy. But anyway, so sometimes you just have to just not to be a jerk. But sometimes you just got to say, you know what? You're not messaging me anymore. And it's not out of hate. Actually, when I do it, it's out of love, hoping that it'll change their character and they'll think about things, about how they treat people and how they use people for their own selfish needs or whatever it is, right? And even like when people give to you, what was the intentions of giving? Was it to get something out of you? You know what I'm saying? There's strings attached, which makes it not a gift. So anyway, back to the story. So anyways, but I was just saying, I understand not getting a message for a few days even or whatever, or maybe even a week, who knows? People have their lives, they're not, some people like myself aren't always sitting there staring at their phones or their computers waiting for somebody to message them. That's not my life at all. So she responded. And we got to messaging back and forth. And we've been messaging back and forth and back and forth. I'm telling you, it's so awesome, you guys. Not that the romance is getting rekindled, nothing like that. It is just so pure and it's really awesome. And it feels really good for both of us. And there's been so much healing just to be able to talk again and to be able to get along and have peace with each other. And I'm telling you, it's been 12 years and I didn't think that this day would ever come. I didn't think about it. But wow, there's been healing in this whole thing for both of us. And the reason I guess I'm sharing that is because sometimes you might think that there's a loved one in your life, maybe a family member, maybe a child, maybe your kids wrote you off. And maybe instead of feeling like a victim, maybe you need to think about why. Why do they write me off? Are they just meanies? Mean. Or are you pushing people away? Are you the one that's actually pushing people out of your life? And there's something in your character that you need to work on and develop. Because trust me, developing your character is an amazing thing, even though it's painful sometimes, but it's amazing. You gotta think about those things. But years and years could go by. And maybe that peace doesn't seem like it ever will happen. Maybe it never does. But I'm telling you, I just got to experience it recently, and it's awesome. And I'm sure there's people in my life that we're never going to come to a place of peace because I'm that bad guy to them. And they're the good guy in the story, and I'm the villain. And they deserve God's grace, and I do not. And this villain named Michael Lehre, he's going to get his someday because he doesn't deserve grace. And I'd say, well, you're right about one thing. I most certainly do not deserve grace. Thank God grace doesn't mean deserved. It is not earned. It's not performance. You perform right, you'll get grace. Nah, nothing to do with that. But even if you don't come to that place of peace with people, I guess what I'm trying to say is, you know what? Have peace with yourself. There's a Bible verse in Hebrews chapter 4:11. It says labor to enter into his rest. The rest of that spirit that is in you. Enter into that one's rest. See, your spirit is always at rest. Your spirit always is peace, full of peace. You just got to get your soul and your mind to enter into that place. But it says labor to do it. Why does it say labor? Because sometimes it ain't easy. Sometimes you got to give it all you got. You got all this stuff against you. You got your boss against you. You got your spouse against you. You got your friends against you. You got your family against you. Maybe you even got yourself against you. You're beating yourself up. That's why it can be such a struggle, such a labor. You know? But God's like, okay, if you want to labor, if you want to struggle with something, then here you go. Struggle to enter into my rest. And that God, he's not some character far, far away in a place called heaven, waiting for you to climb this ladder to reach the place that he's at so you could enter into his rest. You guys, he's in you. He's in you. And your spirit and the Spirit of God are the same. There is no difference. Do you understand that? Man, because the day you start understanding that, you'll enter into that place of rest and you will experience a beautiful word that's called shalom. And shalom means peace. And with that, you guys, I got to get going. I love you. Thanks for watching. I hope you have found this message to be encouraging. I hope you all have a great one. I'll see you all next time. Peace.